Sports shoe sales are a $13 billion business in this country alone. And the vast majority of those 350 million or so pair that are sold every year are what you and I might call running shoes. Now, whether they're made by Nike, Adidas, New Balance, Under Armour, or whatever, they all have, in recent years, been offered with ever-increasing amounts of padding, cushioning, and support. Yet today, a growing number of running enthusiasts are turning to shoes with little or no padding at all, and some are even running barefoot. To explain why, here's our Bernard Gold.
Chris McDougall may look like just another guy out for an easy run, but he's a lot more than that. He's a major voice of a new movement, a revolution, he says, and his message is simple. Take your running shoes off and throw them in the garbage.
I believe running shoes can be the most destructive force to ever hit the human foot.
Running shoes are dangerous.
Yeah.
So if I go into a store and I see shoes that are pretty expensive and they have a lot of cushion, I say to myself, this is great.
Right.
This feels comfortable. This is bad for me?
Totally bad for you. Awful for you. The worst thing you could possibly do. Get out of the store. Honestly, get out of the store. Why are you in there in the first place?
McDougall, who lives and runs in rural Pennsylvania, says the multi-billion-dollar running shoe industry is built on a myth that running shoes help you run longer and faster and cut down on injuries.
My belief is that they cause the very injuries they're supposed to reduce. That by encouraging you to run in a way which is unnatural to the human leg, they actually cause the damage.
According to McDougall, the problem started in 1972 when Nike invented the modern running shoe with a comfortable cushion in the heel.
Unfortunately, you have the law of unintended consequences. You put that little cushion under there and you're slamming down, but look what happens to your leg. This knee, instead of flexing backward, nice and easy, is now locked out and vulnerable. Secondly, you create this straight line for all that impact to run up your leg and slam into every single joint.
And the result is what?
Knee problems, ankle problems, heel problems, foot problems, hip problems, back problems, headaches and bad backs.
And when Chris McDougall speaks, runners listen.
No, barefoot first. Okay. You know, that's where you're getting the input from.
He wrote a book about his theories called Born to Run, which became a big national bestseller. He used to run in the same kind of fancy shoes most runners wear these days, but he had to quit, he says, because they were causing him more harm than good.
I gave up running because I was constantly getting hurt. And then I discovered that there are people that can run hundreds of miles at a time and never get hurt. And that's what I wanted to find out. What are these guys doing that we're not doing? And the difference is what's on their feet.
What's on their feet?
Almost nothing.
He's talking about a tribe of Indians, the Tarahumaras, who live in a remote, desolate part of Mexico. So McDougall set out to find them, and what he discovered were a people lost in time.
They've basically been there untouched for thousands of years. And you know what's fascinating about the Tarahumara is that not only do they run deep into old age, 70, 80 years old, they're still running 50 miles at a time, but they're running injury-free with nothing on their feet. And what's so cool about that, though, Bernie, is that you look at them and they are us. They are doing what humanity has done for millions of years. We're the ones that went off the rails, not them.
What did you conclude from all of this?
That the cause of the harm is the shoes. That the less shoe, the better.
Nice theory, but that's all it was. Except Daniel Lieberman, a professor at Harvard who teaches human evolutionary biology, was making his own trip back in time, this one to the plains of Kenya, to try to figure out why people from this poor, undeveloped place dominate so many of the world's long-distance races. And what he found there was strikingly similar to what McDougall had found in Mexico.
We went to a part of Africa where people have never worn shoes in their lives, these kids, because there's it's a very rural part of Africa.
And they run?
Oh my God, they run. They're the best runners in the world. No shoes.
No shoes at all.
They don't have shoes.
That part was no mystery. Lots of people knew that. But what Lieberman learned from videotaping the barefoot runners of Kenya was startling. First, he discovered that runner after runner landed on the front of their feet, unlike most runners who wear high-tech running shoes and land like this, squarely on the heel, where the shoe is thickly cushioned. Then he ran a few tests and found something counterintuitive. It turns out that runners who hit the ground with their heel on all that cushioning are shocking their body far more than those Kenyans who are hitting the ground the natural way, on the front of the foot with no artificial padding at all.
When you heel strike, a large percentage of your body comes to a dead stop all at once, right? The weight of your foot plus your lower leg stop all of a sudden, like that. So you hit the ground with a certain amount of force, and the ground hits you with the same amount of force. So what barefoot people do is they land on the ball of the foot, just in front of the arch, right here, and they land right there, and then the heel comes down.
That's the natural way.
That's a completely natural, normal, barefoot way to run. And the reason it's comfortable is that when you land like that, much less of your body comes to a dead stop.
Dr. Lieberman says that for 2 million years, this is the way most people ran. But everything changed that day in 1972 when the modern running shoe was born. A major blow, Chris McDougall says, to the human foot and to human evolution.
What kind of expert are you? I mean, you're not a scientist. You're not a doctor.
I believe that my legs are better wear tested by 2 million years of evolution than they are by 20 years of mad scientists playing around.
But the new shoes were comfortable and looked great and were marketed with the best ads money could buy. So it didn't take long before a full-blown arms race for the feet was underway. There was more padding, more technology, more stuff for more money.
We have a $250 sneaker with a computer chip,
Right.
embedded in the shoe. What do you make of that?
It's junk. It's overpriced, useless junk.
It must do something.
Yeah, it makes a lot of money. You know, Bernie, there's a shoe out now that is designed to adjust to women's hormonal cycles so that during their menstrual cycles...
No, you're making this up.
The arch support rises and lowers depending on the woman's menstrual cycle, because women have unique needs and therefore they need a unique shoe to accommodate their needs. I know, I wish I was making this stuff up.
We checked. He's not making it up. This is the shoe that supposedly helps women run during their menstrual cycle. That's all I know and all I want to know. But it does raise a question, one I asked Michael Pavito, who heads the running shoe department at Adidas, one of the companies that put a computer chip in their shoe.
When did it get so complicated? I mean, our ancestors were running across the plains for not 20 miles or 30, they were running 100 miles.
I know, but you could whistle too, but I mean, iPods are here. It's just, there's been advancements.
That depends on what you mean by advancements, because for all that cushioning and scientific technology, there is no evidence, not a single study, suggesting that these shoes actually improve performance or cut down on injuries. But at Nike headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, they say if running shoes don't do any good, how did so many world-class runners break so many records wearing their shoes? Jeff Pichata and Toby Hatfield are part of Nike's design and research team.
So we liken ourselves to being chefs, you know, kind of trying a little bit of this, trying a little bit of that, but we only try it because we're hearing and listening to the athlete, and then we give it back to them and said, does this taste good?
But they never expected to hear what they heard a few years ago from a coach of one of America's top college track teams, a team sponsored by Nike.
He happened to just tell us, I don't know scientifically, but I just know that when I take your shoes off and we do a bit more barefoot training, that I think their feet are stronger. And if their feet are stronger, I can push them harder. If I can push them harder, their performance is that much better.
I mean, you're giving this guy free shoes, free expensive shoes. And he says to you, you know, we're running barefoot around here.
We took that as something to learn from. We said, okay, let's listen and how can we improve it?
And just like that, after years of building thick cushioned high-tech shoes, Nike did a 180 and went the other way. They created a simpler, flexible shoe they call Nike Free, which is nothing like those shoes they've been selling us for 40 years. Their slogan? Run barefoot.
There are no current studies that say if you wear our running shoe, you won't get as many injuries as if you don't. Is that a fair statement?
Except for Nike Free. There's actually been a couple of studies not done by us, by external universities, where they have shown a decrease in running-related injuries in people that trained and ran in Nike Free.
Well, that's interesting, because Nike Free most closely approximates barefoot running. of all the shoes that you have.
Of all our shoes, yes.
True.
So now there's a new movement afoot in the running shoe business. Adidas has also come up with a near barefoot shoe, which they call the Adi Zero. And a small company in New England called Vibram has come up with the five-finger shoe, which basically is a glove for the foot. 3 years ago, business for this shoe totaled a measly $400,000 a year. Today, Vibram says, it's $40 million a year. But for the purist, running barefoot is not just about running. It's practically a religion, a spiritual journey of sorts back to nature. Professor Lieberman hits the pavement every day at Harvard, shoeless.
So here we go. Ready? Let's go.
And this footnote. Chris McDougall is running around giving clinics to runners who want to join the revolution.
Let your foot tell you what it wants to do. Don't try
But
to control
if you don't want to go barefoot because of the hazards of the modern world, concrete and broken glass to name a couple, McDougall says there's still a pretty good rule of thumb and foot to follow. When it comes to running, less is more.
Thankfully, it's a very hopeful message that you're born to run, that you're designed to run, that running is not this dangerous thing that we're always told it is. Running is not going to hurt you. That when you get rid of all the shoes and all the technology and actually rely on your legs the way they have evolved to be used, you can run injury-free the rest of your life. I'm living proof.
Bernie, I found this stuff fascinating, but I can just see all the bad end results, people going out and trying to run differently, and now the podiatrists are going to complain.
Yeah, well, if you've been running the traditional way and you want to start running the natural way on the front of your feet, this is a very important piece of advice. Go slow. Don't run a lot, don't run hard and long because you will tear up your calf muscles. On the podiatrist point, I want to make clear about this whole thing. It's a debate. Some people think running barefoot or with minimalist shoes is good for you. Some podiatrists say very few of us are biomechanically perfect. You need the cushioning. So it's a debate going on.
And even the whole idea of, oh, if you run barefoot, you can run hundreds of miles. I mean, doctors still say that running a marathon is not good for you. I mean, the first guy who did it, Phidippides, he...
Yeah. Well, whether... if you're an Indian in Mexico, maybe you'll run 100 miles. But as it pertains to this, look, some people need the cushioning and all that because if they feel better, they can go longer, they think they can go faster. They think. There's no hard evidence to suggest any of that. But other people, and this is where the movement is the direction the movement is going, less is more, minimalist.
Yeah.
If not barefoot, because of the modern hazards of our world, concrete, glass, stuff like that, then at least a lesser shoe. And the shoe companies are listening because they're going in that direction too.
Big word, it is a debate.
Yeah.
It is a debate. All right. Bernie, thanks.